final speaker in our session today is Matti Koivisto, and he is an educator of engineers at Southeastern Finland University of Applied Sciences, and his areas of research are project management and adult education, and he also currently heads the master's degree program in project and sales management, and he's presented at the Learning Ideas Conference in the past. So welcome back. And his talk today will be on experiences on creating personal study plans with chatbots. So take it away.
Thank you very much. And in his excellent presentation, Khalid pointed out, among other things, the importance of automation. And what I will be talking here today is one example of that kind of thing, one trial that we did in this field. The structure of my presentation is that I will first introduce you to the area that we are dealing here, and then very short introduction to chatbots, even though I know that we are all familiar with them, with this kind of love-hate relationship, very likely. And then we will I will introduce our virtual assistant. We gave her a nice name, Vivian, because we thought that this way our students would appreciate her services more. Then I will explain how we studied our assistant, some results and conclusions, so the typical structure of a presentation. But what we tried to do a little bit differently here in our experiment was that we thought that could we use chatbots in tutoring and counseling. And we all know that this kind of tutoring is usually provided either by an expert teacher or a dedicated specialist. And without any doubt, human tutoring has so many benefits that it would take the whole 30 minutes for me to list them. But what we have to admit that they are very labor intensive. And of course, they are only limited to the service hours. So when, for example, office hours, or whenever the expert teacher or dedicated specialist is offering his or her services. So our idea was that could we do it some other way? And we were like checking, could we use chatbots or virtual advisors in counseling? And of course, counseling can take place in many different forms, and we limited our view to very specific application area. It is related to personal study plan creation and course selection, so selection optional courses. We have like mandatory courses typically in a curriculum, and typically we have some optional courses, and our idea was that how chatbots could help our students to select best optional courses for them. Okay, I think we all know that chatbots are these artificial intelligence based programs, and they try to mimic human beings, so they discuss with human beings. And there are two main categories of these chatbots, question answering assistants and social chatbots. And our chatbot was this kind of simple question answering assistant. So it provides answers and solve specific problems based on the information. And the communication between a human being and a chatbot takes typically either voice or text format. We used here a text format, and there is no single right answer to say what a good chatbot should met, or what are the requirements that it should met. But typically we can say that they should not give just short answers like yes or no, but they should have like better conversational capabilities. And of course, they should use specific vocabulary used in that context. And of course, if they don't provide meaningful answers, the whole thing doesn't make any sense. And this means typically that they must be trained on a domain specific data. And after this very quick introduction, I will introduce you to our virtual assistant. So our aim of the study was to analyze if these kind of chatbots are suitable when the students are selecting courses. So our students, they are like master degree students, and our program is a little bit different in that sense that the students can't come to our master degree program immediately after graduating or gaining the bachelor's degree, but they must have at least 3 years of work experience in their field. And for that reason, our students are like, the average age is something like 39 years or so. So this means that their needs are a little bit different than what are the needs of our undergraduate students. So our chatbot offers suggestions and advice on questions related to personal curriculum planning and course selection, and I implemented it using with IBM's Watson cloud service. And the logic, I do not demonstrate here the chatbot because, as we have experience even today, that might cause a little challenges for us. So for that reason, I will use a couple of slides to show how our system works. So the idea is, of course, that the student put some inputs and get responses, and the artificial intelligence tries to recognize intents, so what the user wants to know, and then we try to catch some keywords. Here are the entities, and the dialogues are parts of the communications. And the whole thing is a dialogue skill, and then it looks a little bit like this, so that there is something like welcome, which is here on this right-hand side of the slide, saying that, hi, I'm your virtual coach, Vivian, and so on. And then we have here a dialogue, which gets names. So because we are friends, give me just your first name. And we try to use here a little bit of personalization. So we want to know the name of a student so that we can use that. So for example, here I used this and wrote my name here, and then the chatbot will use some kind of respond like cool, Matti, or whatever it is. And the students can type anything here, but we also provided shortcuts so that it would make the user interface a little bit easier for them to use. So there are two ways you can do. You can select here from these options, or you can type whatever you want here, and then Vivian tries to understand what you write. And then, for example, if the students write recommendations, then it will recognize that this is the intent is to get recommendations. And then later, when the students, for example, types foreign languages, we catch a keyword which tells that, okay, you are interested about languages, and then we provide answer, and we also provide links to external systems. I hope you got the idea of the chatbot, what we used here. So I will now go to the study design. So our aim was to find out if this kind of system makes any sense. We wanted to know if we could use this kind of system to guide our students. And for that reason, we carried out a small test in our university. And like I said, the students in this degree program are postgraduate engineering students. For that reason, any technical challenges we didn't face because, well, they were engineers, so playing with computers was quite easy for them. And of course, we are all familiar with chatbots. So we introduced our chatbot to our students during a normal online learning session. So you understand this COVID time forced us to use a lot of online learning like in every other place. And after that, they were asked to use the service if they wanted. We didn't force them. We just say that if you want to use this chatbot to help you, to guide you in your course selection, feel free to do that. And from the 57 students, 53 of them used Vivian and filled the feedback form. So 4 students didn't like the idea at all, and that was totally okay for us because we didn't want to force them to use the system. And after they have used the system, we collected feedback, and we had 3 parts there. First, we wanted to know about the user experience, and I will go back to these slides soon, but I will just point out that. So we wanted to know how satisfied they are, how easy they found the system, and then they measure the long-term loyalty so that we know that if they are going to promote the service to other students. In the second part, we concentrated on chatbot specific features. And in the third part, we're asked to evaluate the strengths and weaknesses of the chatbots in this particular task. So what are the results? Of course, I would love to say that we created amazing chatbots which will do all our work and we can just rest from now on. But I want to be honest, we did not do that. But on the other hand, like Khalid said in his presentation, we have to do small steps. We have to go through the cycle of evaluating our things, and we are still in that step. So our students find our system quite easy to use. So in the scale 0 to 1, the mean was 80. They were not so satisfied, and the net promoter score was quite low. Actually, if we calculate it like that, it's really slow because I'm not familiar. I'm not sure if you're familiar with this NPS score calculation, but the idea is that we use 10-point scale, and we think that those who give the highest 2 grades, 9 or 10, they are promoters, and then those who give the grades from 0 to 6, they are detractors, and then we calculate this NPS score. And what is a good NPS score is anything, of course, there are a little bit differences in different fields, in different lines of business, but typically we think that if we get a positive number, we are in a good side. Unfortunately, we were still on the negative side. So it means that our students did not find the system so that they would recommend it to other students to use it, even though they used it themselves. Then when we find out what things our chatbot was able to do well, we were obviously doing quite well in all other fields except our conversational capabilities. Here in the scale 0 to 1, we get 0.6. So that's something that was also not as great as we would like to have. And of course, that is an area where we have to keep on working and develop that. To go to a little bit of the bright side, we wanted to know what were the strengths of our chatbot. And without any doubt, there was one thing that our students really liked, because our students are working full-time. So they are, our lectures are in evenings and during weekends. So for that reason, for them, a service which is always available. I mean, the chatbot can offer services 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So that was something that they really liked. And also, they find it important that if we are providing some services by human advisors, there will be, without any question, some kind of queues. We can't serve all our students at the same time, but we have to serve them one by one. And they thought that that is also a good idea, that whenever they want it, there is no queue, they can use the service. They find it quite easy to use. I want to point out that these are like free or open questions. The students wrote their own views, and for that reason, the percentages are not very high, but it's understandable because students wrote a lot of different kind of things here. And the weaknesses, what we were really surprised was that our engineers don't like chatbots. That was something that we found really surprising, that they didn't like the chatbots. Maybe here in Finland we have the companies have implemented them for some reason a little bit worse than in some other parts of the world. But anyway, that they don't have a good reputation in Finland. What was also extremely important thing is that our students find the chatbot a little bit of cold way of providing recommendations. So it does not encourage or inspire them to study. They are not like saying that, wow, that's the thing that I want to study. And they did not find it very personal. And one important thing that we were not thought earlier was that even though they were creating their own study plans, they also wanted to see what other students, what their classmates have selected. And that was something that our first version was not able to provide. So the conclusion. So our data revealed that our chatbot was quite easy to use, but they were not as satisfied to it. And the negative NPS score clearly points out that Vivian is unlikely to be a viral hit. And of course, that's a little bit of disappointing, because if we want to reduce the need of human tutoring, we must have chatbots used widely. And the main shortcomings of our chatbots were limited conversational capabilities, like I said, a minor significance of individuality, and above all, the lack of inspiring. It did not inspire our students. On the other hand, we have to also think about the positive side here. The qualitative results indicated that chatbots could improve student counseling, and the main advantages of the chatbots were unlimited service hours and scalability. I'm first to admit that Vivian is still a work in progress, and to make it more useful, we must integrate it better to other information systems of the university, so that, for example, the students can share their selections. We must create links to easily contact a human tutor. In the first version, we only provided the possibility to send an email to a human tutor. But for example, being able to open a Teams call or something like that. And all in all, this pair information and recommendations must be able to be shared more flexible way. So our final conclusions, and we don't try to say that this is the absolute truth, this is just our current view, is that we do not believe that chatbots will replace the need for human tutoring, but they can support and supplement it. I mean, if we are able to reduce the need for human tutoring by like preparing students with our chatbots better for our counseling meeting, it is of course a great thing. Why we don't believe that chatbots will replace the need for human tutoring is that, sorry, study planning, according to our view, is a complex decision-making process. And when students make these decisions, they use multiple factors. And some of this information is not official and well documented. And for that reason, they will need insight and advice both from their peers, for example, the previous year students, or from experts like we who are the teachers. Finally, I think that our findings are a little bit like this conference. It's absolutely great that we have today these technologies that allow, for example, me to participate this conference from Finland. However, I really hope that next year I will be again in the New York. So this is like, it's totally different thing to be there, to create connects, to be networked there with other participants of the conference. And that's a little bit the issue also when it comes to this our chatbot. So human.
Mate, I think we lost you. I think you're still here, but I do not. I'm not seeing you on my screen. Maybe I'll give you a minute to see if you can reconnect. There you are. You're in the green room. Maybe they can move you back to the stage. Oh, here he comes.
Okay, I'm here.
Good.
I don't know what happened.
Well, you were speaking ill of this model, and it got back at you. Yeah. So I just have a couple of. I don't see any questions in the Q&A or in the comments, but I just have a couple of my own. So I'm wondering. You mentioned this the continued preference for the personal connection, and you talked a little bit about a combined model. And so I'm wondering, has anyone thought about using the chatbot as, something that students do while they're in the queue waiting to talk to an advisor? Have you guys experimented with some format like that?
Yeah, that sounds a very good idea. So what we think now is that this chatbot is like the early stage of the course selection. So that, for example, that it provides our students a possibility to select, for example, let's say 5 options. And then they could come with these 5 options to us. So this way it would make our work easier when we don't have to like start from scratch, but they have like done their homework, if you allow me to say it that way. Sure. So in our system, because like I said, our students are like all working full time. So for that reason, they are not physically standing in a queue or that way, but we are like having this kind of calendar where they can select a time with a meeting, for example, with me. And then what we now think that, like you said, that they should do first a little bit of search of themselves and using our chatbot or a little bit developed version of our chatbot. And then they would meet me or my colleague personally.
Right. So they would have been warmed up a little bit before.
Yeah, warmed up. That's the right word. Yeah. Sorry, my English is not that good, but you put it right.
Yeah. So a couple other quick thoughts that I wondered if you thought about. I mean, I think you mentioned the notion of trying to connect the system to other information on, that the campus might have. And one of the things that when I talk to students, I think my students are maybe at a little different stage of their careers, but they're often interested in what their peers are doing, because what they really want is feedback on the quality of the instructor or the characteristics of the instructor. So it's not just, do I want to take that class, but do I want to take that class with Professor X or Y? And that kind of information tends to be not in any official record, but in kind of the student culture. And I don't know how you tap into that, but I wondered if that might be what some of your students are looking for as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And for that reason, I recommend, first of all, our students to join our degree programs WhatsApp group where teachers are not allowed to join. So this is like the place where the students can freely either give positive or negative comments, for example, my lectures or my courses. And that is something that we really strongly emphasize, because we have to understand that our students and we staff and faculty members, we are like seeing the things from a little bit different perspective. And for that reason, for our students, it's important that they get all necessary knowledge to make wise choices for them, because let's not forget, we are there for them. We are in the service industry in universities.
That's right. It's a great idea. I mean, the other kind of information that I often get asked by the students I'm counseling, and I'm pretty much doing what your chatbot's doing, and maybe with the same level of satisfaction. I can't always tell. But the other kind of thing that I get into with my students, which I think who tend to be a little bit younger than the ones you're dealing with, is, their career intentions. And, they often want to know, Professor, taking this course or this sequence of courses, will it make me more likely to get hired? And that gets into a discussion of, well, what do you want to be doing and in what kind of organizations? So I don't know if your students have the same kind of interest, since they all seem to be mid-career. But I think some of this career development, which they often look to professors to provide, might be another thing that students are trying to find.
You're absolutely right, because in our case, the students already are working in the industry, but typically our students are in that phase of their career where they think that, will I get promoted, or will I stay in the let's say that in an expert position? So will I become a boss, or will I be an expert? And this is like something that they are wondering, that could this be beneficial for my career? And as we all know, one single course doesn't make the big difference, but it will give maybe the right direction for the students. So for that reason, what is essential whenever we give a guidance to our students, both in your case or in my case, is to first know what the students really wants. What is his or her aims? And that's essential for us to know. And then we can maybe give some good hints, but we can't promise anything.
Right. That's been my experience as well. So listen, thank you very much for the talk. And I'd like to thank all of the presenters for today's session, and all of those who stuck with us throughout the session or who joined at one point or another. And I hope everyone has a great afternoon and enjoys the rest of the conference. So thanks a lot for joining us.